Welcome to today's deep dive. If you've ever casually joked that you're, like a little OCD because you like your books color-coded on the shelf, well, you might want to rethink that after today.
Yeah, you really might. Because the way society uses that term casually is, well, it completely minimizes the reality of what's actually happening in the brain.
Right, exactly. We're looking at what happens when the brain's threat detection system just entirely hijacks a person's free will.
Mm.
And since navigating human psychology is, kind of like mapping a city where the streets keep changing shape.
It is very murky.
Super murky.
Yeah.
So to help navigate it, I'm going to lean on you as the psychology lecturer today, and I'll just play the role of the eager student.
I will gladly accept that role. We're going to dive straight into section 15.5 of chapter 15 from Psychology 2E to really strip away those misconceptions about obsessive-compulsive and related disorders.
Okay, so let's unpack the textbook's breakdown right away. It separates OCD into two halves, right? Obsessions and compulsions. But, honestly, how is an obsession really any different from me just stressing about a huge presentation at work? Or a compulsion different from me washing my hands after sitting next to some coughing guy on the subway?
Well, the key difference there is proportion. And rationality, worrying about a presentation is tied to a real proportional event,
Right. It makes sense.
Exactly. But an obsession in OCD, like an overwhelming intrusive fear of contamination, is something the person usually knows is completely irrational, but they just simply cannot suppress the thought.
Oh, wow. So they know it doesn't make sense.
Yes, usually. And regarding the hand washing, doing it once after the subway is just logical hygiene. The compulsion kicks in when you spend like 3 hours scalding your hands in hot water just to minimize the distress of that intrusive thought. It is severely debilitating.
Wait, so if they know it's irrational, why can't they just, logically talk themselves out of it?
Because logic doesn't turn off physical distress. The compulsion is this ritualistic act driven by a desperate need to reduce crippling anxiety. It's not driven by logic.
So their behavior is basically held hostage by this unbearable anxiety.
Yes. Hostage is a great word for it.
Does that same mechanism apply to the other conditions Section 15.5 mentions? Like hoarding disorder or body dysmorphic disorder?
It does, exactly. People often think hoarding is just being messy or lazy, right? But underneath, it's the exact same OCD mechanism.
So what's the obsession there?
It's a terrifying fear of discarding something they might need or losing a memory. The compulsion is keeping the useless item to alleviate that fear. They aren't just disorganized, they're actively avoiding severe psychological pain.
And body dysmorphic disorder, is that the same loop?
Yes, same loop. The obsession is an intense fixation on a perceived, entirely unnoticeable physical flaw. The distress gets so high that the compulsion, whether it's constantly checking the mirror or even undergoing unnecessary surgeries,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it becomes the only way they can temporarily soothe that overwhelming anxiety.
Okay, so if the person's logic is fully intact, but they're still trapped in this behavior, what is physically overriding their logic in the brain?
Well, the biology here is really fascinating. First, there's a heavy genetic component. The textbook highlights studies showing a 57% concordance rate in identical twins.
Wait, 57%. So if one twin has OCD, there's a greater than half chance the other will too.
Exactly. The genetic link is strong. But the real neurological culprit seems to be the orbitofrontal cortex.
Okay, that's the area involved in learning and decision-making, right?
Precisely. In someone with OCD, this area becomes hyperactive. If you show them a trigger, like a crooked picture on the wall or a dirty towel, that orbitofrontal cortex just lights up excessively.
So basically the brain's threat detection alarm system is just completely jammed.
Yes.
It's constantly blasting a 100 decibel warning siren for a fire that isn't actually there.
That is a perfect way to visualize it for our listeners. The alarm is deafening. I will add a crucial caveat from the textbook, though. Neurological correlation doesn't automatically prove causation.
Right.
We see the hyperactivity, but we can't definitively say the hyperactivity is the root cause of the disorder,
Fair enough. But even so, if we have this jammed biological alarm, how do the actual physical behaviors get so deeply hardwired? We both know how operant conditioning locks habits into place, but the tragic irony here is that the compulsion doesn't even give them joy.
No, it doesn't. And that is the core of the trap. It's negative reinforcement taken to the extreme. Classical conditioning creates the initial fear, right? Like a doorknob gets associated with disease.
Okay.
Then operant conditioning sustains it, The person performs a ritual and that awful anxiety drops. They don't gain pleasure, they just manage to briefly hit the mute button on that deafening neurological alarm.
Right, so the brain learns, hey, washing my hands 50 times, stop the siren. Which
Yeah.
means the next time they touch a doorknob, the urge to wash is even stronger.
Exactly. It reinforces the cycle. You've got the hyperactive biology creating the alarm and the behavioral conditioning locking the escape route into a compulsion. It is a constant, invisible battle.
Yeah, that is exhausting.
Yeah.
Which kind of brings us back to that murky map of the mind. Understanding these mechanics gives you, and anyone dealing with this, a roadmap of what's actually happening.
Absolutely.
And it leaves you with a really fascinating thought to chew on. Yeah. If these behaviors are sustained entirely by negative reinforcement, by performing a ritual just to escape the distress, what would happen if you were forced to confront your ultimate anxiety trigger without being allowed to perform the ritual?
That is the big question.
Right. Could you just sit with the noise long enough that the jammed alarm system eventually exhausts itself, allowing you to just unlearn the fear entirely?